With us now to break down the governor's race, two experts who will be with us on election night, Jodi Latina and Tanya Meck. Jodi Latina is a former reporter, campaign strategist to Linda McMahon, and currently an aide now to New Britain Mayor Aaron Stewart. Tanya Meck is the, let me make sure I have this right, managing director and a partner of Global Strategy Group, also a former aide to then Secretary of the State Susan Bysiewicz, and a legislative aide as well. So, ladies, thank you very, very much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
And Tanya, I'll begin with you. Who's going to win on election night for the governor's race?
Ned Lamont and Susan Bysiewicz.
Why?
Why? Well, listen, I think, we try to see, it's a close race. We know that. Jodi and I were just talking, we've been talking about this. I think at the end of the day, it's hard to see a clear path forward for Bob, right? I think we see him, we don't know a whole lot about him. He's not doing media interviews. He's not talking to editorial boards. He's got one note, and that's I'm going to cut taxes, without a whole lot of detail. And I actually think that the voters and residents of Connecticut are smart enough to see through some of those empty promises that he's making.
And Jodi, you think he's going to win? Stefanowski.
Yes, I respectfully disagree with my friend Tanya. I think that Bob has made his case to the people that he needs to. He needs the votes of the Republicans in the state. He needs the votes of some of the independents in the state. And what you've seen are people very tired of having to empty their wallets out. They're tired of the Democratic rule that Dan Malloy has put on our state. And they really are going to be affecting that pendulum swing that we often see year after year when one party has complete control. And so we will see what happens. It's going to be tight, I will say that.
Right, and it's certainly not denying the pendulum swing. I think, to Jodi's point, what people are looking for in terms of tax relief that Bob is promising, it's just hard to back that up, right? I think even, I know Republicans are desperate for that. I know Democrats are talking about it. But when you talk about taking away 60% of the state budget and you're making that promise, it's unrealistic.
Do people really go in the booth and say, I can't stand Dan Malloy, so I'm going to vote for Bob Stefanowski, or I can't stand Donald Trump, so I'm going to vote for Ned Lamont?
You just don't know. I mean, you have to try to get inside the mind of the voter. I think a lot of people have been weighing back and forth who they really want to vote for. Clearly, you see a lot of people who want to go for Oz Griebel and Monty Frank. I think when it comes down to actually getting in there and filling out the ballot, they're going to go with their gut, and most people will go straight to the party lines. If you are a Republican, you really want to have an opportunity to have that corner office again and to really try to make effect.
Tanya, is Griebel a factor this year? And who's he going to hurt the most?
I think he's a factor. I do think he takes some votes away from Lamont. I think that will be canceled out, what I believe will happen this year, which is a wave of women voters, right? And we see them breaking by and large for Lamont. And so I think those factors taken together may actually put us right back where we started this conversation, which is a close race that I believe Lamont squeaks out of.
Let's talk about those women voters, because your boss, Mayor Stewart, had warned that if they went with two men, it would not be a good thing for the Republican Party. The Democrats have Susan Bysiewicz, the only woman on the ticket on any party right now. Is that a factor?
It's going to be interesting. Women are usually the pocketbook voters, and you see that we are in a high-tax state. You see that there hasn't been much growth. A lot of people are still struggling. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. People are working two jobs or not working at all because they haven't had a job. So I really do believe that a lot of women are going to come out and vote, but there's also going to be an opportunity for young voters. We see that there are a lot of new registered voters in all parties. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly who does come out, who is passionate enough to want to really place their vote.
Is Bysiewicz a factor among the women voters?
Well, she's a factor in a few ways. One, I mean, women are splitting for her ticket, for Lamont's ticket, 55-34, right? So that's very, very clear. Also, don't forget, I think people sometimes underestimate Bysiewicz. She held statewide office for 12 years. So besides the fact that she's a woman and people may be looking for female candidates, she has had years and years and years to crisscross the state. And people know her. They like her. That's going to be a factor in turnout.
Geographically speaking, where are Stefanowski's strengths and weaknesses in this state? Sure.
I would have to argue that Fairfield County and the valley of the state is where he is probably strongest. Also, you can't discount some of the coastal area. I mean, he lives in Madison. There are a lot of Republicans down that way. I think in the Hartford area, you're going to see a lot of Oz Griebel pull. He is very well known in the Hartford area. A lot of the folks that he's been working with through Metro Hartford Alliance, through any of the regionalization groups. It's going to be interesting. I really do think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think, in terms of Fairfield County, I actually think that's a little bit more of a wash, right? We used to think that that was definitely going to be a Republican stronghold for two reasons. One, the makeup of Fairfield County is changing in terms of voter registration. And two, Lamont's from that area too, right? So I think that cancels that out a little bit. And I do think, I mean, Lamont is going to win the cities, right? And so a lot of this, I think, hinges on turnout in the cities. It's hard to see where Bob picks up those. That's a lot of small towns to make up the votes of our big cities.
What should we look for election night in terms of timing? By 9 o'clock, we're going to have some towns in. If Lamont is ahead, what does it tell you? If Stefanowski is ahead, what does it tell you?
Well, I think to Tanya's point, you have to wait to see what the cities do. There are so many votes in cities, and if the cities come out, you will know very quickly.
And they come late, usually.
They do come late, so we may be sitting here for a little bit. The suburbs, obviously, we're going to come in and do what they have to do, but you know, you never know. We always try to guess, and we would think with technology it would be a lot faster, but as we saw during the primary, we didn't know for quite some time.
But if Lamont is ahead early in the evening, when the suburbs and the exurbs start to come in, and we're just waiting for the cities, that's a good sign for him.
That's a very good sign for him. I think what we need to also look at is turnout in the cities, right? And so it's not a single focus. We need to see what the number is, if it's increased, decreased, where we are, and then we see, yes, if he's ahead in the suburbs and the exurbs, I'm feeling pretty confident when those city votes come in, regardless of turnout. But I'd like to see high urban turnout.
What about enthusiasm? How about Republicans? Are they enthusiastic this year?
You know, they should be enthusiastic. This is the first time now in 8 years that they've had an opportunity or will have an opportunity to elect a Republican governor. And so that should be driving the vote out there. However, I think what we've all been hearing and seeing is there's a lot of apathy. I don't know if a lot of folks are going to come out. It's a very important election. These are local elections that affect your everyday life. People should take it seriously and they should do their civic duty. You never know until the day comes, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Let's do a quick prediction on time. What time will a winner be announced, Tanya?
Because you're going to have us back here on election night, and now you're going to force me. You're going to force me to say it.
You think it's going to be a long night like we had with Foley Malloy in 2010?
I think it's going to be a really long night. It's that close now that I am unwilling to say we're going to know right after the polls close.
Jodi?
I would have to agree, especially because you do have that independent candidate in Osgrebold that's going to really mix it up for some. I mean, these numbers are going to be going up and down all night.
But for purposes of election night, we should pick a time and see who's
Sure,
right.
quick guess.
Don't you think?
Oh, 11:45.
I'm going with midnight.
Good enough. Jodi, Latina, Tanya Meck, we'll see you on election night right here on Channel 3. Thanks for being with us today. When we come back.